Emily Harper stood in the doorway of her Portland apartment, the scent of Margaret Bennett's lavender potpourri, a bitter reminder of the family she'd never truly belonged to. Her heart sinking as she realized that 13 years of marriage had made her no more than a guest in her own home. At 45, Emily had hoped for a life of warmth and connection, but the spacious apartment near Portland's bustling downtown, with its sleek hardwood floors and expansive views of the Willamette River, felt more like a gilded cage than a sanctuary. She'd moved here with her husband, David Bennett, a man 8 years her senior, and his mother, Margaret, hoping to build a family despite the shadows of her own past and the complexities of David's. Emily had met David, a divorcee, through a mutual friend at a community event in Portland, where the city's vibrant energy mingled with the quiet charm of its tree-lined streets. David, recently promoted to a managerial role at a tech firm, exuded a comforting kindness that enveloped her like a warm blanket on a rainy Oregon evening. She was drawn to his steady presence, a contrast to the uncertainty she'd faced after a past illness left her infertile, a fact she'd shared with him early in their 2-year courtship. David's affection never wavered, nor did hers when she learned of his son, Ethan Bennett, from his previous marriage. "I'm sorry to ask you, who's never been married, to live with my mother and son," David had said, his voice earnest as they sat on a bench in Washington Park, the scent of roses heavy in the air. "I won't let you suffer, Emily. I'll ensure you're happy." To ease her transition, he suggested a spacious apartment where she'd have her own room, assuring her that Ethan, turning 10 that year, wouldn't need much care with Margaret around. Emily, longing for a family of her own, agreed, her heart swelling with hope. The apartment in Portland was a compromise David insisted on, its proximity to the city center ideal for his commute, though the rent was steep. The space, with its high ceilings and large windows, felt like a fresh start, a place where Emily could finally belong. But reality soon set in. David's mother, Margaret, had taken over Ethan's care after David's father died in an accident years earlier, and she'd moved from her modest home in Eugene to join them in Portland. When Emily first visited Eugene to introduce herself after their engagement, Margaret had been the picture of refinement, her gray hair neatly pinned, her voice soft but formal. "I'll keep preparing meals, Emily," she'd said, her tone polite but distant. "David comes home late, so we can eat at different times. You handle cleaning and laundry, all right? Let's work well together." Emily nodded, grateful for the structure, and switched from full-time to part-time work at the pharmacy to manage her new responsibilities. She'd start later in the morning, returning home around 8 p.m., only to find Margaret and Ethan had already eaten, leaving her to dine alone at the kitchen counter, the silence a stark reminder of her place in the household. Ethan, a quiet boy with his father's dark eyes, wouldn't make eye contact when they met, his shyness understandable for a 10-year-old approaching a difficult age. Emily thought time would bridge the gap, but her efforts to connect were met with resistance. A year into their marriage, she tried to break the ice at Ethan's school activity day in Portland, a lively event with families gathered on the school lawn. "We're all going to see you, right?" she'd asked, hoping to join in. Margaret interjected sharply. "Just David and I will go, Emily. You don't need to worry." Emily, thinking Margaret was being considerate, offered, "I can get the day off. Let's all go together." Margaret's response was icy. "Ethan's family has always been just David and me." The words stung, a clear boundary Emily hadn't realized existed. That night, she confided in David, her voice trembling. "She doesn't want me there, David. I just want to be part of Ethan's life." David sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "Mom's been clinging to Ethan since the divorce. She probably thinks you're trying to take him away. I'll talk to her eventually." But the conversation never seemed to happen. Emily began attending school events as a stepmother, but her interactions with Ethan remained distant. She could sense he wanted to say something at times, his small frame hesitating, but Margaret always stepped in, her presence a barrier. Later, Emily learned the truth. Margaret had been bad-mouthing her to Ethan, whispering that Emily would be happier without him, that she was a terrible person who deceived David. The revelation came years later, but at the time, Emily couldn't fathom such malice. She'd believed Margaret's politeness, however cold, was genuine, and she was content as long as they accepted her as part of the household. Yet, as the years passed, The apartment's spacious rooms began to feel like a maze of unspoken resentments, each corner holding a reminder of her outsider status. Emily Harper, who'd once dreamed of a family filled with warmth, was slowly realizing that love alone couldn't bridge the gap between her and the Bennets, a realization that would soon be tested in ways she never imagined. Emily Harper's days in the Portland apartment had become a tightrope walk, each step weighed down by Margaret Bennet's silent disdain, but nothing prepared her for the moment when the fragile threads of her place in the family snapped like a brittle branch in a winter storm. For 13 years, Emily had navigated her role as an outsider in David Bennett's family, enduring the subtle slights and hoping for acceptance. But as Ethan grew up and left home, the dynamic in the apartment shifted, revealing the depth of Margaret's resentment and setting the stage for a betrayal Emily never saw coming. Ethan's departure after high school marked a turning point. He'd moved in with his girlfriend, Rachel, in Seattle, marrying her a year after starting college without a ceremony, leaving the Portland apartment quieter but far from peaceful. Margaret, who'd once filled her days caring for Ethan, stopped doing housework altogether, her refined demeanor giving way to a new pastime, belittling Emily. She ceased cooking, a task she'd handled since Emily joined the family, and instead sat at the dining table each evening, waiting for Emily to return from her part-time job at the pharmacy. Emily would walk through the door at 8 p.m., her shoulders aching from a long day, only to find Margaret's expectant gaze. "You're so inefficient, Emily," Margaret would sigh as Emily prepared dinner, her voice sharp enough to cut through the hum of the kitchen. "This tastes awful. It's a good thing Ethan never had to eat this." Emily, never a skilled cook, felt the sting of each critique. "I'm sorry, I'm trying my best," she'd reply, her hands trembling as she stirred a pot of soup. Margaret's response was always the same: "You're astonishingly tone-deaf when it comes to flavors, Emily." The criticism didn't stop at meals. Margaret began nitpicking everything Emily did, from the laundry. "Why are there so many wrinkles?" to the cleaning. "You have to vacuum every nook and cranny. You really can't do anything right." She'd sigh dramatically, her eyes cold. "Didn't your family teach you anything? I don't know how you won David over, but I can't see much charm in you as a woman." The insults cut deep, especially when Margaret dragged Emily's family into it, a low blow that made Emily clench her fists in frustration. Margaret's final jab was always the same: "If you hadn't come, Ethan would have never left." Emily understood the gaping hole Ethan's absence had left in Margaret's heart. Empty nest syndrome, she'd read about it, but the constant blame was suffocating. She told herself that if enduring Margaret's cruelty helped her cope, she could bear it, but the weight of those words grew heavier with each passing day. The tension reached a fever pitch when Ethan and Rachel announced their pregnancy. Margaret's joy was unlike anything Emily had seen, her face lighting up as she clasped her hands together. "It's Ethan's baby. My first grandchild, it's bound to be adorable," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with excitement. Emily shared in the happiness, her heart warming at the thought of a new life in the family, but Margaret's enthusiasm quickly turned excessive. Ethan called with a request: "Grandma, can Rachel have our baby at your place? Her family's in Seattle, an hour away by plane, and we have no one else to rely on." Margaret, of course, couldn't refuse, and her excitement went through the roof. She threw herself into preparations, cleaning out Ethan's old room, making lists of baby items, and turning the apartment into a frenzy of activity. Emily, returning from work each night, was dragged into the chaos. "I vacuumed Ethan's room, Emily," Margaret would say, her tone commanding. "You need to wipe the floors and windows, and wax them too. This weekend, we're going to the department store for baby cribs." Cleaning and waxing after a long day was grueling, and if Emily even thought about cutting corners, Margaret would demand she do it over again. Margaret's demands didn't stop at labor. She began asking for money, her requests relentless. "Emily, withdraw some cash tomorrow," she'd say. "There are things I need for the baby." The apartment soon overflowed with baby gear: cribs, strollers, piles of tiny clothes, far more than any newborn could need. Emily, concerned about the spending, tried to reason with her. "Isn't it wasteful to prepare so much before Ethan and Rachel arrive? Shouldn't we wait and choose together with them?" she asked, her voice cautious. Margaret's reaction was venomous. How can you be so cold? Oh, that's right. You're not related to Ethan by blood. You don't care, do you? The accusation stung, and Emily quickly backtracked. That's not true. Please don't say that. I just thought Rachel might want to pick things out herself. Margaret glared, her eyes sharp, and Emily knew she'd crossed a line. Without a word, Margaret retreated to her room, leaving Emily standing in the kitchen, her apology hanging in the air. She reflected on her words, realizing they were reasonable, but Margaret's reaction left her shaken, a reminder of her precarious place in the family. The next morning, Margaret stayed in her room, her silence a sign of lingering anger. David, on a 3-day business trip, called out to her through the door before leaving. "Don't throw cold water on Mom's great-grandchild fever," he told Emily. "She hasn't been the same since Ethan left." "You were worried too, right?" Emily nodded, but her concern was practical. "I am, but if we spend all our money like this, we'll have nothing left when Ethan and Rachel arrive." David's face darkened. "Are you saying my earnings are too low?" he snapped, his pride wounded. "That's not what I meant," Emily protested, but David left with a look of dissatisfaction, the conversation unresolved. Emily had been managing their finances, a necessity since David's company performance declined, cutting his salary to 2/3 of what it once was. For the past 5 years, Emily's part-time pharmacist income had covered the $5,600 rent, while David handled living expenses, a secret they kept from Margaret to save his pride. But the relentless spending on baby items threatened their stability, and Emily couldn't shake her unease. That day, Emily left work early, hoping to mend things with Margaret. She walked into the apartment, the scent of lavender potpourri heavy in the air, and found Margaret at the dining table, her expression unreadable. "I'm sorry about yesterday," Emily began, her voice soft. "I may have gone too far." Margaret remained silent, her gaze icy, and then delivered a blow that left Emily reeling. "Ethan and Rachel are returning for a hometown childbirth. Please vacate," she declared, her voice chillingly calm. "They arrive in 3 days. We don't need another mother figure. You've been redundant for a while. They'll live here, so be out by tomorrow." Emily's heart pounded, her mind struggling to process the words. "I have to leave?" she asked, stunned. Margaret's eyes narrowed, her words dripping with venom. "Yes. You barren failure, you were allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. David's tired of you. Maybe he's with a new girlfriend now." The accusation, coupled with the demand to leave, was a dagger to Emily's heart, exposing the raw truth of her 13 years in the Bennett family. She had never been wanted, and now she was being cast out. Emily Harper walked out of the Portland apartment for the last time, the weight of 13 years of rejection lifting with each step, her resolve as unyielding as the Oregon oaks that lined the city's streets, knowing she was finally free to reclaim her life. Margaret Bennett's demand to vacate had been the final blow, but it was the revelation of David's betrayal that ignited Emily's determination to break free. At 45, she was done enduring the Bennett family's disdain, and with her father's words, "You don't have to endure," echoing in her mind, she set out to build a future on her own terms. The night Margaret ordered her to leave, Emily's heart was a storm of shock and anger. Margaret's accusation that David was with a new girlfriend, coupled with her own suspicions, drove Emily to act. She left the apartment, walking aimlessly through Portland's rain-slicked streets, her mind racing. Calls to David went unanswered, and his office confirmed he'd taken days off, fueling her fears. Seeking solace, she entered a familiar tavern near the train station, a place she and David used to frequent when they first moved to the city. The owner, a gruff but kind man, recognized her. "Long time no see, Emily," he said, nodding. "It's been about 8 years." She smiled weakly, the familiarity a small comfort. "A beer and a mixed plate of grilled chicken, please," she ordered, settling at a corner table. As she sipped her beer, she glanced at her phone, its screensaver a photo of her and David when Ethan turned 18, dressed in a slim suit they'd picked together. The memory of hoping for a closer family stung, and she changed the screensaver, a symbolic act of letting go. She arranged for movers the next day and saved contacts for junk removal services, her mind clearing with each decision. A young waitress approached as Emily prepared to leave. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Harper?" she asked, glancing at Emily's phone. "I saw your screensaver earlier. I need to tell you something." She dropped a bombshell. David was having an affair with one of their employees. "I'll keep you informed," she promised, exchanging contact information. Emily's anger surged, overshadowing her sadness. Returning home, she packed until midnight, her belongings a testament to her contributions to the household. The movers arrived the next morning, and Emily made her intentions clear. "I'm leaving as requested," she told Margaret, who watched in panic as Emily took everything she'd bought: furniture, appliances, decor, erasing her presence. "You can start a completely new life tomorrow," Emily declared, suppressing a bitter laugh. Margaret protested, but there was nothing she could do. The apartment was left with only Margaret's old dresser and piles of baby gear. "Enjoy your life with David, Ethan, and his family," Emily said, placing the keys on the table and walking out. She stayed with a single colleague, feeling a sense of completion, and slept soundly for the first time in years. A week later, David called, his voice a mix of relief and urgency. "Emily, where are you? Ethan and his family are here. Aren't you coming home soon?" Emily's response was firm. "No, I'm not coming back. Your mom told me to leave. I'm done. Ethan and his family are living with you now, right?" She'd learned that Ethan and Rachel, struggling financially after graduating from a vocational school and working part-time jobs, planned to crash at the apartment. "I want you back, Emily," David pleaded, but she cut him off. "Your mom and Ethan never liked me. They're happy to have the place without me, right?" Her snide tone left David speechless. He'd always known of their rejection but pretended not to see it. "I have something to say, so I'll come back once," she added, and David agreed, relieved. Days later, Emily returned to the apartment, new furniture and appliances dotting the space. Ethan and Rachel nodded from the sofa, not bothering to stand, while Margaret glared, her expression venomous. The tension was palpable, and Ethan broke the silence, his tone accusatory. "What are you doing here? You took everything from the house. What kind of monster does that? Dad's been supporting you, and you've had it easy." Emily sighed, her voice steady. "I took everything because I paid for it. I wanted to remove all traces of me, just as you wanted." David scoffed. "There's no way you could afford all that just working part-time at the pharmacy." Emily dropped the truth. "We've been getting by on what we both make for a while now. Your company's been doing poorly, David. Your salary plummeted, so for the past 5 years, I've been covering what's missing. I'm the one paying our $5,600 rent." Margaret's eyes widened, and David looked away, his pride shattered. "From now on, Ethan, you'll be paying the rent," Emily continued. "You're going to live here, right? After all the help your grandma's given, it's time for you to take care of her." Ethan's face fell. "Rent? How much is it?" he stammered. $5,600. Good luck. Since my role as a mother is over, I don't have an obligation to take care of you anymore. Pull yourself together. You're going to be a father soon." Rachel's voice rose in panic. $5,600? Weren't we supposed to live here for free, covering rent and expenses? Emily nearly laughed. "Don't worry, Rachel. You can move to a cheaper place. David still makes a decent salary." She paused, her gaze shifting to David. "Though, since I'll be leaving you, David, life might get tough with your mistress, huh?" Rachel burst into tears, and David panicked. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. "Your mother told me about the new woman," Emily replied. "I guess it's time to end my role as a wife too. I know about Mary. I'll get in touch about that later." David jolted at the mention of Mary's name, realizing Emily knew everything. "This isn't the atmosphere to write a divorce paper," Emily said, standing. "I'll be going now. Talk to me through a lawyer. Margaret slammed her hands on the table, her voice trembling with rage. It's all your fault. Our home is in shambles. Emily's patience snapped. It was you who told me to leave, you who said David had another woman, you who interfered with my relationship with Ethan. Everything was you. She turned to Ethan. Michael has nothing to do with this. It's time for you to step up. Slipping past Margaret, Emily left, her heart pounding but lighter than ever. David agreed to the divorce quickly, unable to counter the evidence of his affair with Mary, provided by the tavern waitress. Ethan and Rachel never moved in, returning to their apartment in Seattle, and Margaret faced potential placement in a care facility as David considered remarrying Mary, who balked at supporting her. Ethan sent Emily an apology letter, reflecting on his childhood longing for connection, stifled by Margaret's interference, and his happiness at her presence at school events. Emily quietly wished him well, her heart softened by his words. She returned to work, rented a cozy apartment near her workplace in Portland, and had the furniture she'd taken disposed of by a junk removal service, wanting a clean slate. Life without Margaret's harassment was peaceful, and Emily vowed to live for her own happiness, her days now filled with the quiet joy of freedom.